Mobile games in the 2010s were just built differently. Pixel Gun 3D. Pixel Gun 3D was pretty much a 3D block shooter that was a complete copy and paste of Minecraft. But what made Pixel Gun 3D stand out was for the fact that it was a block shooter game that actually had good sound quality, great level designs, and an amazing story. And for at least the 2014 to 2015 time period, I can guarantee you this game had you on a chokehold. So much so that when the story mode only had one story, everyone was just salivating and waiting for that next chapter to come out. Sadly, Pixel Gun 3D fell into the unbalanced stereotype, where guns just became outright overpowered for no apparent reason at all. Where you had primary weapons like the Prototype, secondary weapons like the Exterminator, and melee weapons that don't even act like melee weapons at all. Growl Online. Growl Online is one of those games where it's pretty much a hidden gem, and the game was kind of a ripped off of Pokemon, but in its own way felt amazing to play, which took the RPG aspect and mixed it with a social game, where you were able to adventure throughout the large world and pretty much roleplay as anything you wanted to. And while Growl was definitely a good role-playing game, there was really nothing much else to do in it. Like, no, seriously, most of the time when you enter into this game, all you're doing is just going on there just to raise your reputation to 100, troll random people, kill mobs, and pretty much log off. And it doesn't make things any better with the overpriced items in it. I remember the only way to have transportation in the game was to get a horse, which cost 2,500 Growlithes, which sadly you couldn't really earn unless you were one of the lucky ones to join them tournaments. Besides that, the only way to earn Growlithes was a hard grind on destroying bushes. Yeah, imagine being the one to sit there for 30 plus hours destroying the same bush over and over again, finally achieving that horse and finding out that there's still nothing to do in the game. Overall, Growl Online was still a good experience during that time. Another game out there was the mini-series, aka Call of Mini Zombies, Call of Mini Infinity, Mini Warriors, Heroes vs Monsters. And while Call of Mini Zombies usually gets the shine out of all of it, there's one game in particular that deserves to be talked about more, Mini Carnival, which was sadly shut down instantly with no explanation. But word on the streets is saying that the game was removed from the App Store just for the simple fact that there was too many hackers in it. But one thing that made Mini Carnival stand out and pretty much ahead of its time was the mini games that you got to play in it, like the fishing game, the battle royale and team versus team games, and also the iconic maze game where there's 4 different people stuck in a maze and there's a power up that can change them into a monster, and that person has the ability to chase you down to stop you from obtaining coins, which will bring you on top of the leaderboard. At the end of the day, this game has so much more potential, and I wish I could talk about it more, but sadly with it being taken off the App Store instantly after probably 2 years of its release, it would never show. Star Warfare was pretty much a third-person shooter game with the story taking place during an alien invasion, and you pretty much work your way through the story by killing bosses. But not only did this game have a PvE aspect to it, but it also had PvP, which had the usual shooter game modes like Team Deathmatch, Free For All, and All For One. And even with some unbalances to the game and some of the weapons and the hackers, the game actually played all right and was eventually given a sequel in October of 2014. Nowadays, if you do try to play the game, it seems like the servers are down and you'll pretty much be stuck in the loop with the loading screen. But there was something about the competitiveness when it came to PvP and the teamwork when it came to PvE that made this game stand out for some odd reason. Shadowgun was another amazing game that brought insane toxicity when it actually came down to it. Shadowgun was originally created by Madfinger Games in 2011, which you may know them for Dead Trigger 2, which had a very Gears of War style to it, taking place in a time where corrupt intergalactic corporations were attacking many different planets for their resources, and you as the character played as a mercenary for each of those corporations, known as the Shadowguns. Not only was this game free, but you were pretty much literally playing Gears of War on your phone that had the same similar dark aspects, grainy colors, and diabolical characters that will appear in it. The game will eventually go from Gears of War to Destiny to Overwatch in a weird way, just to keep up with the times of gaming, but we could just ignore that. Respawnables was another third-person shooter game, which most of the game was focused on PvP, with its amazing soundtrack, cartoony characters, and the best of it all, the weapons. It was eventually sadly shut down in January of 2022, but Respawnables was by far one of the most addicting shooters out of them all. Just the fact that you could run up on someone with a 2-shot pistol that will instantly kill you was very satisfying for some odd reason. Let's also include Gameloft and the one and only Blitz Brigade. To sum it all up about Blitz Brigade, it was pretty much a Team Fortress 2 copy, and I mean exactly a copy, consisting of classes like the Sniper, Stealth, Soldier, Demolisher, Engineer, Medic, and Gunner. Even going as far as to actually give these characters lore, the only difference being that it had a World War II aspect to it. This game would eventually fall off, but I think it's definitely worth the mention as it was a part of the shooting games back then. Honorable mentions Do you guys remember when Angry Birds used to be good and when they didn't rely on just Angry Birds, but they actually expanded it from Angry Birds Star Wars, Angry Birds Rio? Shoot, they even created one of the best Angry Birds games, Epic, which was literally an RPG Angry Birds game. Regardless, I could go on and on for pretty much hours about the classic 2010s mobile games that we're nostalgic about. But at the end of the day, this should be a reminder that video games can be this good again. Let me know what your guys' favorite classic mobile game was in the 2010s. What are some that you think deserve recognition? And how do you feel about the current state of mobile games now? With that being said, it's Josh, keeping it real, signing off.